I didn't even want to go on that trip in the first place. It was one of those last-minute winter camping ideas my coworker Daniel kept pushing. He swore the lake would be completely frozen, the campsite empty, and the sky clear enough to see every star. I'd never done a proper snow camp before, but he made it sound simple. Drive up, pitch the insulated tent, light a small stove, sleep, head back in the morning. Normal. Harmless. By the time we reached the forest access road, it was already past 10 p.m. Snow had been falling lightly for hours. Not a blizzard, just that steady dry powder that makes everything quieter than it should be. The kind of quiet where even your own footsteps sound like you're interrupting something. Daniel's car struggled the last mile, tires crunching slowly over packed snow. No other tire tracks, no lights anywhere. Just the tree line and the pale reflection of our headlights bouncing off the frozen lake ahead. "This is it," he said, like he'd discovered the place himself. We unloaded fast because the cold hit immediately, that sharp, dry cold that burns your nose when you breathe too deep. My gloves stiffened within minutes. My fingers felt wooden even inside them. The campsite was just a small clearing beside the lake. One fire ring, one warped wooden bench, almost buried in snow. No other tents, no footprints, nothing. Perfect. Technically, we set up in mostly silence, the way people do when it's too cold to waste words. The only sounds were nylon snapping, metal poles clicking, and the soft hiss of falling snow. At some point, while I was hammering a stake into the frozen ground, I realized Daniel had stopped moving. He was just looking out across the lake. "You good?" I asked. "Yeah," he said after a second. "Thought I heard something." We both stood still. Nothing. Just wind brushing lightly over the ice. Probably a branch shifting somewhere. I shrugged it off and went back to the tent. By 11:15, we were inside with the small camping lantern on low. The tent glowed dim orange, just enough to see each other's faces and our breath fogging the air. The stove ticked softly while melting snow for water. That should have been the coziest part of the night. Instead, it felt like the woods were listening, not in some dramatic way. Just that strange outdoor feeling where every tiny sound seems isolated and important. A distant crack, snow sliding off a branch, something faintly tapping. Once, then stopping. I kept telling myself that forests make noise, especially in the cold. Still normal. Around midnight, Daniel said he needed to pee and stepped outside. The tent flap zipped shut behind him. I remember watching the lantern sway slightly from the motion. Then, silence again. 30 seconds passed. A minute. 2 minutes. Too long for just stepping out beside the tent. I was about to call his name when I heard voices. Not loud. Not shouting. Just low talking. 2 people. One was Daniel. The other definitely wasn't. At first I thought maybe another camper had shown up late. That made sense. Public land after all. But something about the tone stopped me. Daniel's voice sounded tight. Careful. Like when someone's talking to a stranger they don't trust but don't want to provoke. I leaned closer to the tent wall without making noise. The second voice was deeper. Calm. Almost friendly. "Just checking if you boys are staying the night out here." Daniel said, "Yeah, just one night." Pause. Then the man asked, "Just you two?" That question sat wrong immediately. Daniel hesitated before answering. "Yeah." Another long pause. Snow crunched. Not walking away. Walking closer. Right toward the tent. My stomach dropped so fast it actually hurt. The shadow appeared first. A dark shape crossing the thin tent wall, blocking the faint reflection of snowlight outside. Bigger than Daniel. Broad shoulders. Hat maybe. He stopped right next to the tent. I didn't breathe. Didn't move. Didn't even blink. The man said, very casually, "You mind if I warm up in there a minute?" Daniel didn't answer right away. And in that silence, I heard something else. Not from the man near the tent. From farther out in the dark. Footsteps. More than one set. Slow. Circling. That was the exact second my brain stopped trying to be polite about the situation. This wasn't a lost camper. Nobody brings friends and sneaks around a tent at midnight in sub-freezing temperatures just to say hello. Daniel must have realized it at the same time, because his voice suddenly got louder. Forced casual. "Actually, man, we're about to sleep. Early hike. Sorry." The man didn't respond. Didn't move. Didn't step away. He just stood there. So close, I could hear his breathing through the tent fabric. Then, softly, almost amused, he said, "You sure there's only 2 of you in there?" My hands were already moving before I consciously decided anything. I killed the lantern instantly. The tent dropped into near darkness. From outside, one of the distant footsteps sped up. Another voice called quietly through the trees. "Everything good?" That's when Daniel stopped pretending. "Get the keys," he hissed through the tent wall. We'd left them in the side pocket. Sorry. My fingers fumbled so badly from the cold and adrenaline, I almost dropped them twice. Outside, the man suddenly grabbed the tent fabric. Not ripping, just gripping it tight. Testing it. That tiny pull, feeling the nylon stretch inward toward my face, was the most terrifying moment of my life. Daniel shouted, loud now, "Back off." No response. Just that grip tightening. And somewhere behind him, fast footsteps approaching through the snow. That snapped something in both of us. Daniel yanked the tent zipper open so violently it snagged halfway, then tore loose. Freezing air blasted in. He lunged inside, grabbed my arm, and practically dragged me out the opposite side. We didn't pack, didn't talk, didn't look back. We just ran for the car. Boots slipping, lungs burning, snow spraying everywhere. Behind us, voices started shouting, not panicked, not surprised, annoyed, like we'd just made things inconvenient for them. One of them yelled, "Hey!" I heard running, real running. Daniel slammed into the driver's seat. I dove in the passenger side. Doors barely shut before the engine screamed alive. The tires spun uselessly for 2 full seconds on packed snow. Those were the longest 2 seconds I've ever lived, because in the rearview mirror, I finally saw them. 3 figures. Not dressed for camping, no gear, just standing near where our tent was, watching. The car finally caught traction and lurched forward hard enough to fishtail onto the narrow road. Nobody followed. No headlights behind us. Nothing. We didn't speak for the first 15 minutes of driving. Not until we hit the highway. Daniel finally said, very quietly, "They never had any camping equipment." I nodded, because I'd noticed something too. When the man grabbed the tent, his hands hadn't been gloved. Bare hands. In that kind of cold. Like he hadn't planned on staying out there long. Like he expected whatever was going to happen fast. We never reported it. Didn't know what we'd even say. And here's the part that still bothers me. About 3 days later, Daniel checked the camping forum, where he originally found that lake spot. Someone had posted asking if anyone knew why there was an abandoned tent found out there. Collapsed. Half buried in fresh snow. No gear inside. No sign of the campers. Just footprints. Lots of footprints. Leading out onto the frozen lake. And none of them coming back. I stopped at the roadside restroom because the snow was getting heavy enough to blur the lane markers. It wasn't a proper rest stop. Just one of those concrete utility buildings the highway department leaves along long winter routes. A ploughed gravel turnout, a flickering pole light, and a low windowless bathroom with a metal door. No other cars when I pulled in. The storm muffled everything. Even my engine sounded strangely small before I shut it off. I remember sitting there a second longer than necessary, watching the snow slide through the cone of the light. I told myself I was just tired. Inside, the bathroom smelled like cold tile and industrial cleaner. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, one tube dimmer than the other, so the room pulsed slightly if you stood still long enough. 3 stalls, 1 sink. Paper towel dispenser half open. Someone was already there. A man stood at the sink, not washing his hands, just resting both palms on the porcelain, head slightly bowed, looking at himself in the mirror. I gave the automatic nod people give strangers in empty places. He didn't nod back. He lifted his eyes slowly, not turning his head, just his eyes, and met mine through the mirror. It lasted maybe 2 seconds too long. Not aggressive, not exactly hostile, just deliberate. I picked the far stall mostly to give both of us space. The metal latch clicked louder than it should have. For a while, all I heard was the fluorescent buzz and the faint hiss of snow hitting the roof vent. Then I realized something. The sink hadn't turned on once. He was still just standing there. I told myself, maybe he was tired. Maybe waiting for someone. Maybe zoning out like people do on long drives. I tried to focus on normal sounds. My coat brushing the door. My boots shifting on the tile. That's when I heard his shoes move, not toward the exit. One slow step, then another. Stopping right outside my stall door, I froze, mid-movement, listening. No breathing, no phone, no cough. Just a presence on the other side of a thin metal sheet. I waited for him to enter the next stall. He didn't. Another long silence. Then, very quietly, his knuckles tapped once on my stall door. Not loud, not angry. Just a soft, testing knock. My stomach dropped in that instant. Not from fear exactly, but from the sudden, sharp certainty that this wasn't normal human behavior anymore. I didn't answer. Another pause. Then I saw it. A shadow shifted at the floor gap. He crouched, slowly enough that I watched it happen. His face lowered until one eye lined up with the narrow space beneath the stall door, looking in, directly at me. Not curious, not embarrassed, just watching. I remember thinking, very calmly, okay, this is real. Something is wrong here. My brain immediately started trying to excuse it. Maybe he thought the stall was empty. Maybe he dropped something. Maybe he's mentally unwell. Maybe I'm overreacting. Then his hand slid slowly under the door, palm up, not reaching for anything, just extending inward, waiting. The fingers flexed once, like he expected me to take it. Every rational explanation I'd been clinging to disappeared right there. I didn't shout, didn't confront him. Something about the absolute quiet told me noise might make things worse. Instead, I said in the most neutral voice I could manage, occupied. His hand stayed there another full second. Then it withdrew. I heard him stand. For a moment, I thought he'd finally leave. But instead, I heard something worse. The faint metallic scrape of the exterior bathroom door opening, then closing. Silence again. Too much silence. I finished fast. Washed my hands faster. My reflection looked pale but controlled, like I was trying to behave my way back into a normal situation. I pushed the bathroom door open and stopped. My car wasn't alone anymore. A pickup truck now sat angled behind it in the snowy lot. Engine running. Headlights off. Parked close enough that reversing straight back would be hard. Driver's door closed. No one visible inside. The snow kept falling, thick and sound-absorbing. And then I noticed footprints, fresh ones, leading from the bathroom to the passenger side of my car. I didn't run. Running felt like the wrong move. I walked steadily, like nothing was wrong. Keys already threaded between my fingers. As I got closer, I checked the passenger window. The handle had been tested. You could see the smear where someone pulled it. Locked. Thank God. I got in, locked the doors immediately, and started the engine. The second my headlights came on, the pickup's driver door opened. The bathroom guy stepped out. Same calm expression, same steady eyes. He didn't rush. He just started walking slowly toward my driver door through the falling snow. That was enough. I threw the car into reverse, crunched sideways through the gravel instead of backing clean, and fishtailed past his truck onto the highway shoulder before correcting into the lane. In the mirror, his truck pulled out a few seconds later, followed for maybe half a mile, then turned off onto an unplowed service road and disappeared into the white. I kept driving another 3 hours without stopping. Still needed the bathroom again later. Didn't matter. I held it. Because the part that still bothers me isn't the hand under the stall door or the eye at the floor. It's this. When I checked my passenger seat at the next gas station, there was a folded paper tucked under the wiper blade. Must have slid into the door frame when I opened it. 3 words, written slowly, neatly. You seem polite. I threw it away. But even now, whenever I stop at a winter roadside building and see only one other car in the lot, I always sit there an extra minute, watching the mirrors first, just to make sure nobody's already waiting inside.